Right, right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and honor and glory to Yahweh by Hashem Yahweh Shah. And that's all praises to the Heavenly Father in the name of who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Real name in Hebrew is Yahweh Shah. My name is Osman Wah, coming from the Dallas campus, Sakari, Dallas. Um, and today, I just kind of want to go over something quick. It's not going to be long. Um, but I was just kind of, thinking, and when I woke up this morning, just seeing all these things come to pass, man, that was foretold that was going to happen, right? And we are right here, man. We are right. We're right on track. We're right on schedule, according to prophecy, according to biblical prophecy, right? No sooner than when the Israelites, when we started waking up and turning back to our true nationality, lo and behold, that's when all this hell starts to break loose, you know. And so these things need to be uttered upon. We need to be speaking about these things because the scripture says that in the latter days we'll consider it. All right. And we're going to go into that word consider, what that word actually means to consider it. Right. It actually means to teach. Right. And so that's exactly what's happening, man. So we are right on track. Everything's falling into place exactly how it's supposed to be. Right. We see uproars of nations. We see these wars starting to uh, uh, um, take place, civil wars, race wars. The country's just in turmoil, man. Just so many things going on. It's hard to keep up with. You watch something on the news, today, tomorrow is going to be 10 different things that's going on, you know. But that's what's gonna that's what you can continue to expect to happen, right? These prophecies, they're gonna be trailing each other one after one after one, like right back after back. Well, not back after back, but one after another, basically, you know. So I say all that to say that we're exactly where we're supposed to be, for the world, for the heathen nations, and for the 2/3 and the wicked of our people, is catching them off guard, and of course they're running around frantically, you know. Let me get this real quick. Isaiah 46:10. All right, because we take comfort through the scriptures, through knowing these prophecies, and when we see them come to pass, even these horrific things that I was prophesied, it gives us faith, it gives us courage, man, knowing that he gave us mercy by telling us ahead of the game what was going to happen, right? So when we see these things come to pass, we we're much more strengthened, and we have a solid foundation on our faith because we know that God is not a man that he should lie, and so we see that exactly what he declared it has happened, right? So let me get this real quick. Isaiah 46:10. He says, I'm starting at verse 9. He says, "Remember the former things of old, for I am Yahweh, and there is none else. I am Yahweh, and there is none like me." And this is what he does. He says, declaring the end from the beginning. Let's look at that word declaring real quick. He says to tell, right? To inform, to publish, right? And where was it published at? Right here in these holy scripts, right? This is how he declared it, by the mouth of his holy prophets, right? So he says, declaring the end from the beginning, right? The end of what? And the beginning of what? Well, let's get this real quick. It's 2nd Ezra chapter 6, verse 9, because this is exactly what we are witnessing today, right here in front of our eyes, man. It's 2nd Ezra 6:9. He says, "For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that followeth." Right? So going back to Isaiah, right? He says that he declares the end from the beginning. So he's declaring the end of Esau's reign while he's declaring the beginning of Yasharah's reign forever. Right? That is what he's declaring. Right? And so that's why I said everything is falling right in everything is falling right on track, man. All right, it's falling right on track. He says, declaring the end for the beginning, right? The end of Esau and the beginning of Israel. He says, and from ancient times, the things that are not yet done. So from he says, declaring the ancient times from the things that are not yet done. So When were these prophecies written? They were written thousands of years ago, but now you see them playing out in front of your face today, right? He says, saying, my counsel shall stand, and I will do all my pleasure. What does that word counsel go into? Basically going into his plan, right? His movie script, because this is just nothing but the Most High God's movie that we're living in, right? He designed and purposed everyone to play their specific role in their script. Israel, we're basically the good guys, you know, we messed up, you know, so he had to chasten us with the bad guy, which is Esau, with the arch nemesis, right? Like the movies that Hollywood produces, you know what I'm saying? They know what's in the Bible. That's why they make movies about it, because it's such a beautiful design from the Most High God. You know, he created something. He created this movie that we call life. You know, and it's very interesting. There's not a dull moment in it, and we're living in some very exciting times right now. Let me get this real quick. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 8, verse 4. He says, where the word of a king is, yeah, because the Most High God, he's the king, right? He says there is power, right? So there's power in these words, man. There's power in these words, and that's why we stand on the street corners and we put those words out in the air. We put those vibrations out in the air, knowing that there's power in the tongue. So when we speak the downfall of this wicked society, it's got to happen, because we're speaking it, thus saith the Lord. So when we put it out in the air, guess what, man? What can you expect? Esau's reign to end, and that's exactly what we see simultaneously while we see Israel starting to rise. He says, and who may say unto him, what doest thou? Right? So who can say, what are you doing, God? He already declared it, man. He already declared it. Let me go down to verse 5. He says, whoso keepeth the commandments shall feel no evil thing. Yeah, especially the elect, man. Right? They're not going to feel, of course, we're all going to, Jacob, we're going to have to go through our trouble. But those that God is, let me let this car pass. But those that God has already predestined and elected to not taste death, you know what I'm saying? And they've been keeping the law, statutes, commandments, doing the best of their ability, and having faith in Yahweh Shah. They're not going to feel no evil thing. Like Psalms 91 says, he says, only with their eyes they shall behold the fall of the wicked, right? And he said, and a wise man's heart discerneth both time and judgment. So if you're wise, you can see what time that we're living in. We're living in judgment time, man. We're living in days that's not too far from judgment day, right? But the only way you're going to discern this is if you're wise. And how do you get wisdom? You simply ask God for it, just like King Solomon did, just like James says that we have to do. He says, if any man lacks wisdom, let him ask of the Most High, that giveth to all men liberally, right? So if you want to know the time and judgment, you got to ask the Most High for wisdom, right? Let me go down here real quick. Let me go to, this is Sirach. Sirach 33. Man, we're living in some exciting times. Others may say it's perilous, but I think it's exciting, you know, and it's beautiful. It's got to happen. He says, better is the end of a thing than the beginning, right? Let me get that real quick before I get this inside right. Yeah, this is all right. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 8. He says, better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, right? So it's better for Esau's kingdom to go ahead and end, right? Why? Because then righteousness can truly take hold of this world. And who's those righteous? The Israelites, man. He says, better is the end of a thing than the beginning. So our people that's up here voting for their next slave master, right? Listen, y'all are not wise, man. Y'all trying to hold on to something that God has already foretold. This king has already uttered it, man, that it's got to end. Y'all are trying to hold on to something that is just inevitable to fall, man. And he says, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit. Yeah, because you got to be patient patiently waiting for this thing, man. For our people who's woken up to this truth, man, each and every single morning when we see America still in existence, listen, we get discouraged. When I wake up and I got to go to work, I'll be like, damn, man, this place ain't burned down yet, right? Let me get this real quick. This is Proverbs 13 and 12. He says, hope deferred maketh the heart sick, right? What does that word mean, deferred? It means kept back. So that hope that is kept back, it says it makes the heart sick. And so what should be our hope? To see the downfall of this kingdom and the rising of Israel, right? So each and every morning when we wake up and we still see that hope is deferred, that these calamities haven't fallen upon America immensely like it will be yet, we kind of get a little discouraged. But that's why we got to be patient in spirit, right? He said, here's the faith and the patience of the saints, right? He that leadeth to captivity shall go into captivity. We're patiently waiting for that thing, man. He says, but when the desire cometh, check this out. But when the desire cometh, so yeah, when that thing that we desire to see, the finally Esau wiped out of existence, and we're just living in immortality next to Yahweh, man. He says, it is a tree of life. It is a tree of life, man. So yeah, now let me go back to Sirach 33. I'm sorry, it's 39. 39 and 16. He says, all the works of the Lord are exceeding good, and whatsoever he commandeth shall be accomplished. He said, where's that? Yeah, I'm starting at the top. And he says, all the works of the Lord are exceeding good, and whatsoever he commanded shall be accomplished in due season. In due season, right? So a lot of our people have lost hope in this word because they may think that a prophecy, was supposed to have come to pass, a particular prophecy was supposed to have come to pass, right? And they're like, because their hope was deferred, they just lost faith. They lost that patience, man, right? But you got to understand that there's a season, there's a time and place for everything. He says, whatever he commanded, it shall be accomplished in due season, right? Because according to Ecclesiastes, man, there's a time and a place for everything. It's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under heaven, right? Let's look at that word season. He says a set time, an appointed time, right? So there's a set time and there's an appointed time for nations to rule. He sets up kingdoms and he diminishes kingdoms. Let me get that real quick. Because a lot of our people are like, oh, the God is so good, why would he allow us to come over here to America on slave ships and let the white man rule over us? But they're ignorant, not knowing the times. That's why he says a wise man's heart discerning both time and judgment, right? They're ignorant, not knowing that this is the time for America to be visited by the Most High God. It wasn't time 50 years ago. Why? Because we were still living out our punishment, man. No man is going to go, or no nation is going to go unpunished by the Most High God, right? We did some wicked things in Israel. So it was still our time to be in that furnace of affliction. And it's still our time even till today. We still got to go through it, even through Jacob's trouble, right? Let me get that in Daniel 2. Daniel 2 and 21. This is, he says, I'm going to start at verse 19. He says, then was the secret revealed unto Daniel in a night vision. Then Daniel blessed the God of heaven. Daniel answered and said, blessed be the name of God forever and ever, for wisdom and might are his. And he changes the times. You see that? He changes the times and the seasons. All right, now let's go back to Ecclesiastes. Let's go back to Ecclesiastes 3 and 1. He says, to everything there's a time, to everything there's a season and a time to every purpose under heaven. Going back to Daniel, he says, and he changes the times and the seasons, right? And something synonymous with the times and the seasons is the rulership of particular kingdoms, right? He says, he removeth kings and setteth up kings. He giveth wisdom unto the wise and knowledge to them that know understanding. Why? Because the people that's going to discern these times and seasons, they're going to have wisdom, right? That's why everybody else, these heathens and the wicked of our people, like I said, they have no idea what's happening right now. They're freaking out. They're freaking out. But those that God has chosen to bestow his wisdom, right, and his mercy unto, to show us these prophecies, to give us clear eyes to where we can see these scriptures, right, and to understand what these prophecies are going into. Hey man, we have peace. We have peace. Let me get that real quick. We have peace while everybody else is freaking out. It's 2 Ezra 3. I believe it's 2. All right, let's go here. 2 Ezra 2. And yeah, 2 Ezra 2 and 27, he says, be not weary, for when the day of trouble and heaviness come, others shall weep and be sorrowful. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. All right. People are weeping, and this is just the beginning of it, man. Jacob's trouble ain't even really started, man. This is just beginning, and you already see people just flipping shit, man. All right. He says, but thou shalt be merry and have abundance. He says, the heathen shall envy thee, but they shall not be able to do anything against thee, saith Yahweh. All right. He says the heathen, they're going to envy thee, but they can't do nothing against you, especially the elect. Who can charge anything against God's elect, man? All right. Verse 29, he says, my hand shall cover thee, so that thy children shall not see hell. And of course, it's not talking about the place on the ground. It's talking about a horrible state of being, right? A horrible predicament to be in. So we're not going to see, like Ecclesiastes 8 and 5 says, it says that whosoever keepeth the commandments shall feel no evil thing, right? So you're not going to see hell, right? Let's go ahead and kind of get into, it's not really a lesson. It's just really just, I was reading the book of Psalms this morning, Psalms 37, and it was kind of leading me to different places, you know, different precepts and whatnot. I was like, man, even right here in the Psalms, bro, it's just so many prophecies concerning the downfall of this kingdom and the uprising of Israel, man. And even in the book of Job, right? So let's go ahead and get into it a little bit, right? Because man, these prophecies, man, hey, listen, if it wasn't for these prophecies, bro, my faith would not be nearly as strong as it is right now, man. All right, let me get something real quick. This is 2 Chronicles 15. 2 Chronicles 15 and 8. He says, and when Asa heard these words and the prophecy, right? So when he heard these words and the prophecy of Obed, the prophet, what did he do when he heard the words and the prophecy? He says he took courage. And that's exactly what happens. Yeah. So when we hear these prophecies and we hear these words, and not just only hear them, but now we see them, hey, guess what? We take courage. We take courage and we do what we got to do to get our house in order. So what did he do? He says, and put away the abominable things. What were some of those abominable things that we did? Right? Eating pork, shrimp, crab, lobster, going to the damn Christian church, you know, adultery, you know, all types of wickedness, man. Right? So that's what happens when an individual hears these prophecies and not just hear them, but they take heed to it and they apply it to their life, right? They put away the filth of their life, man. Right? So let me finish it out. And it says, and put away the abominable things out of all the land of Judah and Benjamin and out of the cities which he had taken from Mount Ephraim, and renewed the altar of Yahweh. Now, what's the altar? Israel. Right? Before Israel as a whole is you as an individual. So you got to renew your mind, because what is the altar? This is where you give basically sacrifice to the Most High, right? It all starts within the mind. That's why Paul says that we have to be renewed of the mind, right? He says, and renewed the altar of Yahweh that was before the porch of the Lord, right? So another thing that happens, man, when you get a hold to these words, Romans 10, Romans 10 and 17, he says, so then faith cometh by hearing, and hearing by the word of God. So when we hear the word of God, man, our faith is going to be strengthened, man. So let me get this real quick in Psalms 37. Psalms 37, verse 10, he says, verse 9, he says, for evildoers shall be cut off, But those that wait upon Yahweh shall inherit the earth. Right? And who's the evildoer? What nation of people is the epitome of evildoers? Esau. And what did Obadiah 18 say? He says that they're going to be cut off forever. All right. So we know through the spirit and through prophecy and just through being astute studiers of the word, that when it talks about evildoers or the wicked or the unrighteous, that's talking about Esau, man. Now, of course, we got some wicked people of our own nation, but as a whole, it's talking about Esau. He says, for evildoers shall be cut off, but those that wait upon Yahweh, they shall inherit the earth. Verse 10, for yet a little while. So he says a little while, right? So just like Habakkuk, he says, though it tarries not, right? For it shall come quickly. He says, for yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yeah. So that gives me hope. Like Proverbs 13 and 12 says, for hope deferred makes the heart sick. But when it comes, then you'll be like a tree of life, and then you'll be happy, basically, right? He says, for yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be. Yea, thou shalt diligently consider his place. Consider whose place? The wicked place, right? And it shall not be, right? Now let's go into that word consider, man, because there's quite a bit that we can glean off that word consider, right? So let me pull it up on here as well. Psalms 37 and 10. He says, I'm going to read it one more time before I go into the definition consider. He says, for yet a little while, and the wicked shall not be, yea, thou shalt diligently, right? Diligently consider his place, and it shall not be, right? Now let's look at that word consider. It says to discern, understand, consider, right? Now, how do we understand or consider Esau's place? How do we understand his place? Let's look at it. Right? Because one of the definitions of it was to discern, right? He says, for the word of God is quick and powerful and sharper than any two-edged sword, piercing even to the dividing asunder of soul and spirit and of the joints and marrow, and is a discerner. So the word of God is a discerner of the thoughts and intents of the heart. So that is how we discern or consider the wicked's place. That's how we consider Esau's place, which is here in America. Now let's look at another definition of that word consider. It says to teach. Look down here at E. It says to teach, instruct. So that's exactly what's happening before his kingdom completely falls to shambles, right? This is a part of us considering his place. We're teaching about it, right? We have to teach about it. That's why in Ezekiel 35, he says to prophesy against Mount Seir, right? That's all going back into what Psalms 37 says, what it means to consider the place of the wicked, right? We're teaching against it, and we know about it by the word of God, right? And he says, and it shall not be, right? Now let me get this real quick. This is Jeremiah 30. I'm gonna start at verse 23. He says, behold, the whirlwind of Yahweh goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked, right? Of the wicked. So this is the context. The wicked. The fierce anger of Yahweh shall not return, until he have done it, and until he have performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days, ye shall consider it, right? Ye shall consider. So there you have it. So once again, the latter days, we're going to be what? Let me get that real quick. In the latter days, you're going to be what? You're going to be teaching it. That's how, hey, listen, man. That's why I say everything is falling right on time. It's falling right on track, man. Because that's exactly what happened. We woke up to who we are, right? And not only did we wake up to who we are, but we woke up to who our enemy is. And now we teaching it. We teaching the downfall of his kingdom. We're considering the place of the wicked. We're considering, damn, this is Mount Seir. Damn, this is Babylon. Damn, this is Egypt. Damn, this is Sodom. You see? Hey, man, this beautiful thing. This word is powerful, man. But the wicked ain't going to understand it. So now let me go back to Psalms 37. Psalms 37. All right. Verse 11, he says, but the meek shall inherit the earth, right? And shall delight themselves in abundance of peace. And of course, that's talking about Israel, right? Once our people have been purged and the elect and 144,000, we're going to inherit the world, man. We're going to be kings and priests ruling forever, right? He says, I'm going to skip down to verse, let's see here. Yeah, I guess, man, this whole chapter, I encourage anyone that's watching this, man, I encourage y'all to read this whole chapter of Psalms. It's prophetic and encouraging at the same time, man, right? So let's start at verse 17. He says, well, really? Dang. Excuse me. Yeah. Let's just start at verse 12. Let's go down verse 12. He says, the wicked plotteth against the just. Yeah, that's exactly what Esau do. He plots. How do you plot? That means that you hold a council, right? You hold a council together before you actually go execute that thing that you just plotted, right? And that's exactly what Esau's been doing since we've touched down on USA soil, man. They've been plotting against it. They've been holding councils against us, right? What do you think the damn Senate is, right? What do you think that they do in those secret chambers, man? Right? The Rothschilds and Illuminati and all those people, the upper elites, the higher echelons, they hold councils. That's all going apart. That's all going back to plotting, right? And who they plot against? They plot against Israel, and it's nothing new, right? Because the same book, in the book of Psalms 83, he said, "For lo, thy enemies make a tumult, and they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel." You see, that's plotting against thy people and consulted against thy hidden ones. Right? You see? So they take counsel against us. They plot against us. It says the wicked plot against the just and gnash upon him with his teeth. All right. Of course, he's not biting up on you, man. When it talks about when it talks about teeth in the Bible, that's talking about instruments of war, right? So they gnash upon us with killing us, basically, right? You see, it says, so the Lord shall laugh at him, for he seeth that his day is coming. So all the while Esau is doing this, you know, the Most High God is looking down from heaven, and he's looking at the actions of Esau, in particular to the way how he's treating his people, man. And the Most High God just laughing at him, not knowing that his day is at hand, bro. He says, check this out. Verse 14 says, the wicked had drawn out the sword and have bent their bow to cast down the poor and needy and to slay such as be of a right conversation. You know, you can read about that in Wisdom of Solomon chapter 2. He says, their sword shall enter in, and Wisdom of Solomon chapter 3. He says, their sword shall enter into their heart, and bows shall be broken. Yeah, so those, what was that going into? That's basically talking about their missiles, man. So those missiles that they and not just missiles, but any type of destroying mechanism, right? Or mechanism that can murder someone that Esau uses, plans to use against God's elect, is going to go straight back into their heart, man. Right? It's going to be used against them. Let me get that real quick. This is Psalms 141 and 10. He says, let the wicked fall into their own nets. You see? Whilst that I withal escape. So David saying, listen, let the wicked, let them fall by their own crafty devices and counsels, right? While you deliver me. You see? He says, let me go down here. He says, a little that a righteous man hath is better than the riches of many wicked. Yeah. He says, for the arms of the wicked shall be broken. And those arms is talking about their military strength, their power, right? He says, but Yahweh uphold the righteous. The Lord, Yahweh, knoweth the days of the upright, and their inheritance shall be forever. They shall not be ashamed in their evil time, and in the days of famine shall they be satisfied. Job chapter 5 says, in famine and destruction, we're going to laugh at, man. And that's coming up pretty soon, right? We already got stores, they starting to diminish things off their shelf. You know, people are starting to stockpile because they know what's about to happen. You see, right? But God's elect and God's chosen, Lord, will I'm a part of that number. We ain't got to worry about none of that, man. Right? He says we're going to be laughing at that. We're going to be laughing in that day, man. He says, but the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of Yahweh shall be as the fat of lambs. They shall consume away into the smoke. They shall consume away. Now he says fat of lambs. Where is you find that at? Isaiah 34. And he's specifically talking about Idumea or the Edomites. This is how you know this is prophetic what David was writing in the Psalms, man. This is Isaiah 34, verse 35. He says, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven. And of course, he's not talking about he's just going to wave his sword up in the air, you know, or up in the sky. No, he's talking about how he's going to send these destroying mechanisms upon the high places of the world, basically the upper kingdoms of this world, like Esau, right? Because heaven is just basically, well, you have many different definitions of heaven, but in context of this is talking about someone that's in the highest state. Like Lamentations chapter 2, it talks about how Israel, how we were cast down out of heaven. Now, did he literally, you know, were we literally up, floating up in the sky? He just used gravity and just threw us down here? Nah, it's just talking about how we was in the highest state as a people. He says, for my sword shall be bathed in heaven. Behold, it shall come down upon Idumea. That's just a Greek word, a Greek way of saying Edom, right? And upon the people of my curse to judgment. The sword of Yahweh is filled with blood. It is made with fatness, and with bloods of lambs and goats, and the fat of kidneys of the rams. For Yahweh had a sacrifice in Basra and a great slaughter in the land of Idumea. You see, so David was basically saying the same thing. Oh, let me let this truck pass. David was saying the same thing, man. He says, but the wicked shall perish, and the enemies of Yahweh shall be as the fat of lambs. You see? Who else did he liken that to? Idumea, man. He says, they shall consume away into smoke, shall they consume away. Yeah. Because when these ICBM missiles come over here in America, guess what? Eventually it's gonna be smoking, man. All right, let me get that in Revelation. Revelation 18 and 18. He says, I'm gonna start at verse 16. He says, and saying, alas, alas, that great city, right? Basically talking about America in totality, that was clothed with fine linen and purple and scarlet and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour, so great riches is come to naught, right? So in 1 hour, this place is going to be destroyed. He says, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships, basically talking about the merchants, basically people that America does business with, imports and exports. He says, and sellers, and as many as by trade by sea, they stood afar off, and they cried when they saw the smoke of her burning. Yeah, so that's another key way to let you know that what David was talking about, who David was talking about, was Esau, or Mystery Babylon. Let me get that. Let me pull that back up again. Psalms 37 and 20. I'm going to start at the latter part of it. He says, they shall consume away into the smoke. Shall they consume away? Yeah, you go Revelation 18 and 18 says, and when they cried, they saw the smoke of her burning, saying, what city is like unto this great city? You see? So those people that, or those nations that Esau's been doing commerce with this whole time, they're going to see Esau getting destroyed. They're going to see his kingdom get destroyed, man. Right? They're going to stand afar off, looking at the smoke of her torment, man, reaching up unto the heavens. Right? So let me get this real quick. This is Job 34. And even like I was telling you at the beginning, man, even Job has a lot of prophetic a lot of prophecies in it as well, man. I'm gonna start at verse 24. Job 34 and 24. He says, he shall break in pieces mighty men without number. Now breaking pieces. Now this should start gearing your mind towards who else did God say he's gonna break in pieces? Well, the nations, right? The nations. This is God. He's a big God, man. Right? He deals on a universal platform, right? So everything he does is grand, right? So he's not he's not talking about he shall break in peace that one man. He's talking about these nations, man. Particularly and it's about to explain, but particularly the nations that's been afflicting God's people, man. So who else did he say that he's going to break in pieces? And how is he going to break them in pieces? This is Daniel 2:34. He says, and this chapter right here is going into the kingdoms that was going to rule from Babylon all the way down to Esau's kingdom, right? All the way down here to to the spiritual Babylon, basically, right? He says, I'm gonna start at verse 32. He says, the image his head was of fine gold, right? And that's talking about King Nebuchadnezzar, Babylon. His breast and his arms are silver, meeting the Persians. His belly and his thighs as brass. Yeah, that's talking about Greece. His legs of iron, right? That's Rome, and America is just a revised Roman Empire, right? Rome never really fell in totality. It just divided off and split into these different Edomite rulerships. His feet part of iron and part of clay. Thou sawest till that a stone, right? And who's that stone? Yahushua. He's that cornerstone. Was cut out without hands, which smote the image, right, upon his feet that were of iron and clay, and break them to pieces. You see? So Yahushua, what is Yahushua going to be doing when he comes back? Right? He's coming back to break in pieces the nations, right? So when we go back to Job 34:24, he says, he shall break in pieces mighty men without number. Yeah, that's going to really be happening in the day of Armageddon, when he gathers all these heathen nations. And then he like in Obadiah, he says that he has a controversy with the heathen, and he's basically going to be pouring out his wrath and his fury upon them. Right? That's when he's going to be breaking them in pieces. He says, and mighty men without number, and set them in their stead. Therefore, he knoweth their works. And what's the works of Esau? What's the works of America that they've been displaying since they came into existence? Not just them, but the whole world. This is Isaiah 13:11. He says, and I will punish the world for their evil and the wicked for their iniquity, and I will cause the arrogancy of the proud. You see how he says the proud? That's how you know it's talking about Esau, man. Obadiah lets you know that they're the most proudful people, right? It says, and I will cause the arrogancy of the pride of their proud to cease, and will lay low the haughtiness of the terrible, right? So Job 34:25, he says, therefore he knoweth their works. So he's coming back to punish them, punish his world, break them in pieces, right? Because of their evil deeds. And he overturneth them in the night. You see, he overturneth them in the night. How did Yahushua tell you he was going to come? Like a thief in the night, right? Matthew 24:42. He says, watch you therefore, for you know not what hour your Lord cometh. Let me get this in 1 Thessalonians 5. 1 Thessalonians 5, he says, and 2, he says, for yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord so cometh as a thief in the night. Just like Job is saying. Job 34. Job 34. Let me pull it back up. Yeah. Yeah, he says, therefore he knoweth their works, and he overturneth them in the night, so that they are destroyed. So here, right here in Job, man, we can start seeing little glimpses and rays of prophecy shining right here in the book of Job, man. And let's keep going. Verse 26, he says, he striketh them as wicked men in the open sight of others. What did he say in Babylon? What's going to happen to Babylon in Revelation 18:18? These other nations, they're going to behold, they're going to stand up far off and behold America's torment. So that's him punishing them in the sight of these other nations. Verse 27, he says, because they turned back from him and would not consider any of his ways, right? So that they cause the cry of the poor to come unto him, and he hears the cry of the afflicted. You see that? Right? Ever since we've been in America, we've been here. God's been hearing the cries of his people, man. It's James 5:4. He says, behold, the higher of the, I'm gonna actually get an NLT. It's even colder, man. James 5:4 in NLT. He says, for listen, hear the cries of the field workers. Where did we used to work at when we got here? Right? Some of our people still do it. In the fields, man. We were slaves. He says, hear the cries of the field workers or field niggas who you have cheated of their pay. The wages you held back cry out against you. You see that? This man, Esau don't know what the hell's about to hit him. He said, the cries of those who harvest your fields. Hold on, let me let this truck pass. He said, the cries of those who harvest your fields have reached unto the ears of Yahweh of heaven's armies. Right? It didn't just reach into the Most High God's ears, but it also reached into the ears of the angels who's ready to wage war too, man. Right? And what did the Sirach say? If someone curses you in the bitterness of their soul when they're poor. Let's look at this. It's Sirach 4. I believe it's 4. Let's see. Yeah. I'm going to start at verse 2. Actually, verse 1. My son, defraud not the poor of his living, and make not the needy eyes wait too long. And this is going back to the law, because according to the law, you're supposed to pay a man every day that he works. So if I was to hire somebody, like, hey man, you need to, you want to come lay some bricks with me, we build this house or whatnot. I was a brick mason or whatnot, and he agreed to work with me. That saying at that, as soon as we get done for that day, I'm supposed to give him his wages, right? This is how you know Esau does not consider the Most High God's ways. That's why he's just got to crush this kingdom in its entirety, because this land is polluted with filthiness and lawlessness, right? Verse 2, he says, make not a hungry soul sorrowful, right? And that's what Esau has been doing. He takes pride in it, basically. He takes pride in defrauding the poor, right? While uplifting the rich. He says, neither provoking man in his distress. Wow, because that man, when you provoke a man when he's distressed, man, it ain't no telling what he can do and what he will do, right? He says, add not more trouble to a heart that is vexed, and defer not to give it to him that is in need. Reject not the supplication of the afflicted, neither turn away from the face of a poor man. Turn not away thine eye from the needy, and give him none occasion to curse thee. For if he curse thee in the bitterness of his soul, his prayer shall be heard of him that made him. You see that? So if that poor man that you've defrauded, if he curses you in the bitterness of his soul while he's hungry, the Most High God is going to hear that, man. The Most High God is going to hear that, just like James said. Let me read that again. He says, for listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom you have cheated of their pay. The wages you held back cry out against you. The cries of those who harvest your fields, you see that, have reached unto the ears of Yahweh of heaven's armies. All right. Let me read down in verse 5. He says, you have spent your years on earth in luxury, Esau. You see that? This is how you, man, this is how you know it's talking about Esau, bro. He says, you have spent your years on earth in luxury, satisfying your every desire. You have fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter. You see? Just like in Isaiah 34 and Psalms 37, when he says they're like lambs of fat for the day of slaughter. Yeah, man. You see? So continue to live in luxury, Esau. Continue to fatten yourself. The Most High God is just going to have that bigger of a sacrifice in Basra, man. You see? So, man, I was planning to go into a little more, but I'm gonna stop it right here. I didn't want it to be too long, so let me stop sharing the screen real quick. So yeah, man, we got plenty of things to look forward to right here in these scriptures that's coming to pass, man. So this should strengthen your faith. You know what I'm saying? See all these calamities happen. You know, um, just use this time wisely. You see what I'm saying? To be that wise steward. You know, and to keep watch before his Lord comes, man. So you don't get caught slipping, right? because the last thing you want to do is let that sword that's supposed to be meant for Esau come down upon you, man. You don't want that. So until next time, we'll say, call halal Yahweh by Shem Yahweh Shah and Shalom.